Brad Garlinghouse just shocked the world, saying that he believes ETFs in the crypto space will represent a larger share over the next year or two. I wanted to get into how much money is actually in the ETF space and what could we be expected to see come into the crypto space in the next year. I also have a ton of XRP and Ripple updates I want to get through, but let's start with Brad Garlinghouse's clip.
What's your take on this too? Do you think the ETF floor was overhyped?
Definitely no. Look, obviously what you were describing is all data correct, but I think you got to zoom out a little bit further and realize that this ETFs didn't exist because of the regulatory problems in the United States. They didn't exist. And in the last 2 or 3 weeks, over $700 million have flown into XRP ETFs, which is just it's pent-up demand from institutional investors, from investors who want access because they don't want to custody themselves, what have you. But look, again, if you zoom out to the macro level, the total ETF market, only 1 or 2% of the total ETF market is crypto. I will bet anybody here that a year from now, that will be more than 1 or 2%. There's going to continue to be inflows, and yes, you can take a snapshot of time and say, okay, there's a billion left Bitcoin ETFs or whatever the data you cited a moment ago. But if you zoom out a little bit further and say, okay, over 2026, do we really think crypto ETFs are only going to be 1 or 2% of the total ETF market? No chance. And so that, again, it's one of those macro tailwinds where Ripple sits in a position where we see, particularly from our Ripple Prime, the prime brokerage business, we see a lot of interesting activity where institutions that have been on the sidelines, maybe because of regulatory clarity, maybe because of risk aversion, for whatever reasons they've been on the sidelines, they're getting involved. And they're starting small, and they're going to walk, then they're going to crawl, then they're going to walk, then they're going to run. And I think it's going to create a lot of tailwind.
All right, so how much money are in total ETF assets now sit in the tens of trillions, roughly about $13 trillion here in the United States and just under $19 trillion globally. I know it's a lot of money, right? While crypto-focused ETFs and ETPs hold on the order of about $150 billion. So 19 trillion globally, 150 billion. As you can see, there's a lot of growth that can happen here through crypto ETFs like the spot XRP ETF, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and other assets that we are seeing being flown at the market right now. US ETF assets, recent industry data shows about 13 trillion. Monthly statistics and investment company institute put US ETFs right around 12 trillion. So this varies depending on the market, 12 to 13. Now we have a good number. Global ETFs, 18.8 trillion and covering 15,000 products globally. This puts ETFs roughly at 1/5 of the total global funds of assets, with large managers like iShares and Vanguard together accounting for well over half of the ETF assets under management. Vanguard, we know that name, right? We've done a lot of information on them over the last few days. And so we understand that just if we're at 150 billion, where do you personally think this market is going to grow over the next few years? Are we going to get more institutional investment into the crypto space because of regulation and all of these things? Or do you think we're going to get less? Now, if you answered we are going to get less, you probably need to do some more research. But if you answered we're probably going to get more, you are on point. I love it. All right, crypto ETFs are back on, will accelerate into 2026. And here's the weekly crypto assets flow. As you can see back here, we were doing some pretty insane numbers with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and now we're, not doing as well because they're a little bit skittish in the market. But I do think this will start to pick up again, and we will see things start to fly. I wanted to add, this is a 25-second clip. This is Raoul Pal. He said that Bitcoin is about to explode in the next 30 days. I just wanted to play this clip and we'll move on.
So it's been really a patience game of the sideways choppy market, but people forget also last year was the same. Last year peaked in somewhere early in the year and then did nothing all year. Everyone got so frustrated. Everyone was flinging poo at each other online and getting angry with each other. And then before you know it, took off like a rocket ship in November and December. And I think it's somewhat similar this time around. And the rocket ship this time around is based on the fact that...
All right. And then I wanted to show you here right now, we have $909 million assets under management right now for XRP ETFs specifically. And these are spot products. We're closing in on that $1 billion marker. And here is the volume that we saw for today's market. Spot XRP ETFs volume, 33.1 million. Leveraged XRP ETFs, 31.2. Together, $64.3 million went into these products on December 3rd. So you'll probably see this first thing in the morning on December 4th. We're trying to get through all this content for you guys. I really appreciate all of your support. Thank you for the likes and the comments. You guys are just truly incredible. I will keep you up to date with everything. You know that. I got your back. And then best spot XRP ETF performers, XRPZ with 11.39 million, XRP with 9.6, and then XRPC is the Canary Capital one at 6.5 million. Now, Chad Steingraber did point out Grayscale updates 85,173,000 XRP now assets under management. Here's 85 million XRP that's been taken out of the market, whether it's through OTC desks or whatever. It's now taken out of the market and sitting in cold storage at Grayscale, right? So you got to understand, as more ETF demand comes in, more XRP will be needed to fund these products, less will be available, and that is what we need for the price to start moving. And then, of course, 30 minutes, almost 32 million. Franklin XRPZ, Franklin Templeton, saw nearly 4 million in a minute volume spike. This is that pent up demand that Brad Garlinghouse was just talking about in that clip I played just a few minutes ago. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, right? I don't even know what you would call it. Vanguard's bigger than an elephant. This is kind of like an Eternal or something, right? Big. And I don't know why with the Marvel, whatever, all good. The 11 trillion behemoth Vanguard, you might need an oxygen mask for this. Let me just go through this with you. Allowing the XRP ETFs to trade is just the first step. What comes after that? The Vanguard advisors begin giving recommendation allocations of portfolios to every single client, self-directed and managed. What happens when they recommend to hold an XRP ETF and it's just only 1% of their total holdings? 1% of 11 trillion is $110 billion. Sounds too much? Okay, then we recommend to our client 0.5% of their total portfolio, which is $55 billion. What does $55 billion buy over the course of 1 year, assuming allocate slowly? Here are the numbers. $55 billion. Here's 1 week, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. Lots of stuff going out. And then, of course, assume price of XRP is $2.17. These would be the numbers. So obviously, if we saw this much demand, the price wouldn't be what you see here. They would definitely run out of XRP on OTC desks and would be forced to buy it from exchanges. And of course, these numbers would be all messed up. But this is just giving us a good understanding that there's really not enough XRP left over for them to really get into this. And you got to understand, once you have regulation and regular people start to wake up like, oh, that XRP thing my friend was telling me about 3 years ago, oh, institutions are really starting to use that. Maybe I should buy some. What happens when you get the next 100 million people coming into the crypto market and all of them want some XRP as well? There's just not enough to go around at this point, and we don't even have the corporations and the strategies and other DAT companies and everything else. You see where this is going, hopefully. Hopefully. All right. And then what are we expected here? The Fed is looking that they probably will be cutting rates. We should get an announcement December 9th or December 10th on this. Let me get this clip from Paul Barron.
I am more worried about that. I think that we're probably going to get a hawkish cut from the Fed next week, which is going to be problematic in the margin. And I think that the crypto sector is going to have more and more downside. And that's going to hurt the retail sector when we've already got a K-shaped economy pressuring through the cost of living and rising unemployment at the lower end of the income spectrum. So I think that's going to pressure investor sentiment across the spectrum, which is going to add to volatility and make it harder in the short term.
The point that I would look at with Powell is that he is holding on to this 2% target by the Fed in terms of inflation. Remember, a lot of you don't realize inflation is accumulative. So it continues to go up no matter what. What's not acceptable right now, and I think this is where Powell is trying to fade the heat on it, is the jobs position that we're in right now. If he comes in with a cut, which I think he will, in December, I think the next steps moving forward is going to be forcing his hand because of the replacement that's going to be coming in right behind him. That whether that is Hassett or someone else, the likelihood it's going to be a pro-Trump administrative selection, and it's going to start. They are going to start cutting at will. We could see a full 1 point cut in the Fed fund rate, and I think this will start to move the markets forward. Now, whether that comes in March, April, or May is the big question, because this is how the market will play into it.
So if you're wondering what all of this means, is that Jerome Powell's tenure as the Fed chair is about to be over in the first quarter of next year. After that, Trump decides who he wants to put in there. And the person that we think he's going to put in is Kevin Hassett, and that is basically Trump's right-hand man. And so Trump would be able to control what the Fed actually does. And whether you think that's a good or bad idea, I don't know. But then rates are going to start dropping at an alarming pace. Now, the issue here is when you drop rates and you print money, you are going to lead to higher inflation, and we will have to deal with that down the road. But in the short term, if you're looking to buy a car or a house or any of those types of things, revalue your credit cards, this is going to be a time to probably do that because you are going to see very low interest rates. Makes me think, man, maybe I should look to buy something next year, right? Jim Rickard says the next real crash will come from stablecoins. He's not wrong. This is from Black Swan Capitalist for Son. Tether is too big to fail. It's too big to expose, protected only as long as it serves the system. Once its usefulness ends, it becomes a scapegoat for the next financial reset. Ooh,
so
that's interesting.
my concern would be that, not just concern, just from experience, this will happen. The market will freeze up, exactly what happened in money markets and commercial paper in 2008. The Fed will be very reluctant to bail it out. I mean, the Fed gets criticized when they bail out money market funds, because they're not banks. I mean, bailing out banks is kind of their area of responsibility, but not money market funds. But they did bail out money market funds. Would they bail out the crypto equivalent of a money market fund? I'm not so sure. They might just let it fail as kind of a lesson. And then there you get into the issue of contagion, where a failure in one market very quickly leads to failures in other markets. Because if the crypto holder, the stablecoin holder, and I redeem and I say, give me my money back, and you say, sorry, I can't, we're having difficulties right now.
That would be, stable coins do require a lot of US treasuries and other assets to back up those. Tether is the biggest one. Tether has not been too forward with a Big Four audit of all of their reserves. And so people question, do they have the money to back up the stablecoin that they have, $185 billion? And if there's a big adjustment in the bond market or in some of the other things that back up Tether, could that in fact implode Tether? And will they look to use Tether as a scapegoat once we enter this next financial crisis, whenever it's now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now? I don't know when that is, but look to Tether or other crypto companies to be a scapegoat from some people. All right, let me play this clip from All In Crypto. And Smoke Dog.
I would say that 2025 was the year of regulations and approvals and green lights, while 2026 will be the year that we will begin to see this utilization, the mainstreamification of this technology, all of the steps, all the phases that we've been observing, such as regulatory clarity, ISO implementation this weekend, partnerships and integrations on the federal level, on the international level, interoperability being established between countries, regulation being finalized internationally. These are all the steps that are implementing the introduction of this new technology, of this new asset class, as it revolutionizes the back end of the financial ecosystem. And when we look at just the overall journey of blockchain and crypto, this has been a transformative year regarding the attitude of crypto, the approach that banks and governments are taking with cryptocurrency. And this is certainly a big credit is due to the Trump administration for their leadership on crypto adoption and crypto regulation. That it was certainly a huge catalyst for this accelerated pace of crypto adoption. In 2026, it will certainly be characterized by a mature approach, by an actual value delivery approach to retail users. Of course, they won't be exactly privy to the behind the scenes inner workings of this technology, but very few people are, knowledgeable of every single piece of technology that facilitates our everyday living. And blockchain technology will just be another integration into our daily lives that facilitate all the value in the world.
There's brighter days ahead of us, and actually 2026 turns out to be a very positive year for the cryptocurrency space.
Yes, so I do agree with the institutional consensus that 4-year cycles are over because of several obvious factors such as ETFs, tokenization, and regulatory clarity.
Listen, in the short term, you're going to go up and you're going to go down. It's going to feel like a roller coaster. It sucks, right? When the price goes up and then it spikes down, maybe you bought higher and now it's lower and you're like, what do I do? I always look when the market goes down as an opportunity to add to my bags. I am not trying to time the market to sell the top and buy back at the bottom and do this with the dips. I can't do this dance. I know that I just need to buy as many of these assets as I can. And in 5, 10 years, whatever the time is, I am prepared to wait for what's to come because we know that the financial system is getting redone. And we know that blockchain and Ripple and XRP and the Stellars and the Chainlinks and the Solanas of the world, those will be the new rails of our entire financial infrastructure. And that is how money is going to move. That is how tokenized value will come on chain. And that is how we move to this new future where all the money is on blockchain. All right. Billionaire Pantera Capital CEO live on CNBC says Bitcoin is going to go to 745,000. Why 745? Why not 750? Like, what's with the number?
You bet your life it's not going to zero?
I used to tell people it could definitely go to zero to try and be, conservative. I don't think it's possible now. 50 million people in the U.S. own it, 300 million people globally. BlackRock and Fidelity are selling it. Like, it really has reached escape velocity.
But you're 745,000. I mean, I heard 13 million from Michael Saylor the other day.
Of course you did.
I think it can go, it's going up 3 orders of magnitude since we launched our fund. I think it could go up a fourth. And that puts it at 15 trillion market cap, which it still seems relatively small versus 500 trillion of financial assets. That's doable.
Michael Saylor does everything he can to push people into Bitcoin because that's what he owns a lot of, right? I own a very small amount of XRP compared to how much XRP is out there. I don't care what you do. Buy, sell, it's none of my business. I know what I need to do, and I am trying to show you all the things that I am learning every single day on this channel. If you're getting value, if you like this channel, you can like the channel, you can like the video, you can leave a comment below, you can send the video to a friend, whatever it is, just thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. It is an honor to spend this time with you every single day. I really do consider it an absolute honor. So thank you. I'll see you next time. Aloha.